Welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Andy. Today we're going to be doing a pea, mint, asparagus and goat's cheese risotto. So I'll just run through some of the ingredients that you're going to need today. We've got some mascarpone, we've got some goat's cheese, we've got garlic, butter, chopped up asparagus, diced onion, some arborio rice. We're going to do some roasted asparagus spears for garnish. We've got some chopped parsley, some white wine, some dried mint, olive oil, some shaved grana padano for garnish, some frozen peas, some grated grana padano, and some vegetable stock. So we'll take this over to the pans and we'll start cooking. So what we've done first is we've just put the stock on to boil. We're just going to warm that up, and then that'll be ready. You can see it's already nice and hot. So first things first, you want over a medium heat. We'll put a bit of olive oil in the pan. I'm just going to let that warm up a little bit first. We don't want the pan to be too hot, as we don't want any burnt bits in the risotto. So just a nice medium heat. And then what we're going to do, we'll add the onions. And the garlic. We're just going to sweat that down slightly, making sure that we're not getting any caramelization on the onions whatsoever, and that the garlic doesn't burn. Just turn the stock down. We don't need it to be boiling as long as it's come to the boil. And then what I do next is I put the arborio rice in. And what we're trying to do with that, we're going to try and, same when you cook off onions, we're going to try and get a bit of a translucent kind of colour to them, so they lose that whiteness, they become more of a clear colour. Now that might take maybe 5 minutes, because we're doing it on a medium heat. But the trick is with the risotto that you need to be stirring it all the time. You don't want it to start catching on the bottom, because that's when you start getting into a sticky situation. So just keep that going and keep stirring it. And you'll notice as you're cooking it, the rice will you'll just see a little bit of whiteness in the rice. And we're just trying to take as much of that out as possible before we add the white wine. Okay, so now we've had that cooking for 5 minutes, we're going to add our white wine. And what we want to do with this is just reduce it down slightly. You still want to have a bit of the wine in there just for the flavour. But it won't take long to reduce that amount of wine down. And as you can see, there's no caramelization, no burnt bits in there. So when that's reduced down, we're just going to add the stock, a couple of ladles at a time, and keep stirring. It's very important that you keep stirring the risotto, because it's very easy to stick to the bottom. And as you can see, as it's ticking over, it's slowly reducing the stock down and incorporating it. The rice is absorbing it. So when we get down to that kind of consistency again and there's no visible liquid, top it up with a bit more stock. And what we'll do, we'll continue to do this until the majority of the stock is incorporated into the risotto, or to the point where the rice is ready to have everything else added to it. Okay, so now that we've incorporated as much of the stock as we need, so we're just going to test it now. Now we want the rice to be al dente, not soft, but not too hard. We just want to have a little bit of resistance when we bite into it. And that's perfect. Just a quick little tip, the reason why we use hot stock instead of cold stock is when you add the cold stock to the pan, you have to bring it back up to the boil. So the risotto will take a lot longer to cook using cold stock than boiling stock. So that's a little tip for you. Okay, so what we're going to do next, we're just going to add a little bit of dried mint. Add that to it. Let's turn that down a little bit. And then we'll add our asparagus pieces, our frozen peas, stir that in. Now these things won't take long to cook, but you need the asparagus to still have a little bit of crunch to it as well, a bit like the rice. Otherwise it just becomes a mushy mess. And then what we're going to add, we're going to add the mascarpone. We're going to crumble the goat cheese in. Stir that up and incorporate all of that. Okay, turn the heat back up a little bit, and then we're going to add our butter. And our parmesan, the grated. And while we're just going to leave that ticking over, what we're going to do, the asparagus spears that we had, we're just going to put those on a tray with a little bit of the olive oil that we had left over. Just drizzle that over, toss that around, and we're just going to put that in the oven for a couple of minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So they can be nicely roasted off for our garnish. So once the butter and the parmesan's all incorporated in, we're going to check the seasoning. If your stock's too salty, then you won't need to add any salt to it, but always taste. And that way you can gauge it on your personal preference. So we're going to add some cracked black pepper in there now. You can see it's starting to thicken up nicely. You don't want it to be too too thick and stodgy. When that's all come together, we just add the chopped parsley. Okay. What we're going to do, we're just going to pull that off, let that sit for 2 minutes while the asparagus finishes roasting in the oven, and then I'll show you how to plate it up. Once the risotto has come off the heat and the asparagus is come out of the oven, we're just going to plate this up very simply. As you can see, the asparagus is still nice and green, the peas are still nice and green. We're just going to plate this up real nice and simple. A bit of parmesan on the top. And we'll just finish with a nice bit of parsley. And there we have it, pea, mint, asparagus and goat's cheese risotto. I hope you guys enjoy these videos, and I hope you enjoy tasting the food that you're cooking. We'll see you next week.